Do you want my middle name too?
No.
So I guess you don't want any accents either.
What are some of the things that you do that you think makes you a guy?
Pee standing up. Just kidding. I don't pee in public, I just pee here because I'm outside and no one's around.
You want to know what defines me as a man?
Yeah.
Having a small little bird.
If you think back into the Greek world, which much of our culture is based on the Greek world, there's actually not just one type of masculinity or one type of ideal man or male type that the Greeks would look toward. They would look at someone like Heracles, who you may know as Hercules. As the big, muscular, tough guy. He was certainly celebrated, especially in the wrestling schools in the Palestra. Then you have, Apollo, which is a very different type of young male, much thinner, much less aggressive, plays a harp, plays music. Then you have, Hermes, which is a different type. You have the very kind of paternalistic Zeus type figure or Poseidon type figure. So there's actually quite a range of masculine types, even in ancient Greek. There wasn't ever, I think, a singular sense of what it is to be a male.
There's a lot of research that suggests that a lot of what comes across as ideal masculinity or ideal femininity in a given society are the markers of wealth or social status. In the 19th century, Shane would have been regarded as an ideal man. Because the big muscular tan guy was the guy out working in the field. That meant he didn't have money, wasn't successful. It was the small, thin, pale guy who was witty and charming because he spent all his time reading books. Those are the things that signaled successful masculinity. If you go back to the 1950s, there are at least two very different images of ideal masculinity in the 1950s. One is the television image, which is the sanitized breadwinner, knowledgeable, quietly confident male. The other is James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, Marlon Brando on the Waterfront, the tough, brooding rebel who can't fit in and who is rebelling against everything. And really, you can see in those two forces sort of the setup to the 1960s on a certain level. There's, at post-World War II, there's a lot of men who simply want to come home and settle down and start a life. When I was growing up in the 1980s, there were three sort of very different images of masculinity. There was Sylvester Stallone and the sort of hyper-masculine, hyper-macho, non-communicative, violent male. But then the other two images that I had in the 1980s were Alan Alda and who played Hawkeye Pierce in MASH, and Michael J. Fox, both of whom were witty and charming, and Michael J. Fox's character was known for dressing up and being more professional in his appearance. And Alan Alda, both the actor and the character, were understood to be more sensitive men than your typical male. So there were these sort of conflicting images in my time, my youth, of what constituted masculinity. There's still conflicting images today. And I think the fundamental effect of this is that it creates real and ongoing anxiety. You can never be sure you're the right kind of man. Masculinity typically is defined in opposition to femininity. Femininity is defined by attention to personal appearance. So masculinity must be, I don't care about my personal appearance, and by extension, I don't care what people think of me. The ideal man is really a struggle over what the ideal man is in any given moment. And the same is true, for example, with Charlie Sheen. On the one level, Charlie Sheen is an extension of something that I've commented on in my classes all the time, which is that the primary way to perform masculinity right now, the primary way, I would argue, but not the only way, is to not give a damn. And that is to visibly not give a damn. So you wear clothes that are brand label clothes, but they look shabby, and you wear them without a belt, and you wear your shirt untucked, and you have gel in your hair, but you purposefully muss it to make it look like you just got out of bed, but not really. And so, you know, in Charlie Sheen, people who say Charlie Sheen doesn't give a shit, you know, of course he does. He cares a great deal about what people think about him. That's why he goes on television and does interviews. That's why he did the tour circuit for a while. But he works very hard to perform the identity of someone who is unconcerned with others' views of himself.
What makes you a man?
What makes me a man? Well, a definition of a man is a very exotic, sophisticated individual who is self-confident and very sensational in a Mediterranean way.
Be somebody who is tender and caring on the inside and can be there emotionally, but doesn't wear it on his sleeve.
What makes me a man?
Yeah.
I'm not getting on this. I don't know, you know, I provide for my lady, I treat her nice, stuff like that.
I would say tough.
As a man, respect a woman.
Physical nature.
Define man.
Penis.
But then if you ask them, is doing this, if somebody did this, would they be a man? Even if they had a penis, they would say no, right?
Yeah.
The perception of even very kind of masculine ideals would include things that we might not today consider masculine.
Right. Well, the image of masculinity and the publicly preferred image of masculinity changes on a regular basis. And one way of looking at this that I've become recently much more supportive of is to argue that whatever the bar is, society keeps moving the bar or changing the target, because that keeps everybody on both sides of the gender divide struggling to figure out how to perform the role. And in the process, especially in a consumer capitalist society, as you struggle to perform masculinity properly, you buy the things that are necessary to be masculine. As you struggle to perform femininity properly, you buy the things that are associated with being feminine. And so there's a sense in which it is advantageous, especially in a consumer capitalist society, to change the models.
Because I've been teased for being skinny before, and it's just like, well, like I can't really do anything about it. I have to like eat so much. It's really hard. I was complaining about that to my friend Zach, who I climbed with today. I was like, I have to shit so much now because I eat all the time. If I'm not eating, my body's gonna like, you know, lose its whatever, its mass. So I gotta like keep up on that.
She turned 16 years old. My sister moved out. My mom and my sister were not on good terms. Just seeing my mom and her go through so many fights, it kind of impacted my childhood, put me a little bit more on edge. It kind of made me like a little bit weary about girls in a sense. I don't know really why. Relating back to school, I would probably say I wish I was a little bit more manly because I was very, very shy and I didn't step up ever to, you know, speak my own mind, and I really wish I did.
My mother and my father got a divorce when I was barely 5, and I grew up primarily without without that male influence there. There was no bonding experience, male bonding experience for me, like, going to the park or in the front yard and playing catch football or baseball, or, your dad teaching you how to drive some crazy sports car, or that you and your dad, you just got into trouble, because that's what guys tend to do sometimes when they're together. I didn't have that experience, and I didn't have any of those, and it was a struggle. It was really difficult for me to try to grasp a hold of what I felt like, being a man was. Recently, I saw an episode of Desperate Housewives on television, and in this particular episode, there was a little boy who was supposed to compete with his classmates in a soapbox derby, and his mother found out about it, and the little boy didn't want to compete, and under pressure from his mother, then the little boy confessed that he didn't feel comfortable because his father wasn't there. And I was watching that episode with my girlfriend, and at the time I didn't really respond to it. I didn't say anything or make a big deal about it, but I mean, it kind of hit me in a personal way, because I know how that was. I know how that feels. It's strange to, engage in activities and things where, it's kind of typical for a male. It's like an all-male kind of a bonding experience there between the father and son, and I could sympathize with the little boy. What happened to me as I started to get older is I became more comfortable with accepting the fact that those experiences weren't going to be part of my life. And I think the more that I became comfortable and the more that I understood that, the more that I started to define for my own self what I felt being a man, a masculine man, was. And that would be my definition of being a man, being a masculine man, is being comfortable with yourself, being confident in yourself, knowing who you are and where you want to go and what you want to be in life without any reservation. That, to me, is being a man.
If you provide for your family and, like, you work hard and, do what you gotta do, like, raise your kids, be good to your wife or whatever, your husband, if you're gay, whatever. Like, if you're all that, then you're a man in my eyes.
Growing up and taking on all these new roles and all these new responsibilities, just to be able to provide for my family, just be a better person, make a change in the world. I think that's what defines me as a man.
Society just has, like, stupid views on masculinity and what people, like, it's not just a masculinity thing, it's just our society has a problem in general with you should be blank, like, whatever, fill in the blank, like, you should be more manly, you should be more womanly, you should be skinnier, you should be fatter, you should be more muscles, you should make more money, you should do this, you should do this, and it's just like, why can't everybody just do what they want to do? Like, I feel like that would make our society a lot happier and less stressed out all the time. Like, everyone thinks, like, oh, I have to be doing this, but I'm not doing this, so I'm doing something wrong, and oh, I gotta freak out about it, like, yeah, whatever.